So of course you got a great camera, and the next thing you have to worry about is support. You got to figure out how you're going to keep that camera from moving around, from falling down. You got to be able to move it around and get all the things adjusted. And that seems simple. You buy these cheap little tripods, and these are less expensive tripods here. But when you start, and this is fine for an EX3, that's about as big as you want to go. When you start putting big cameras like Reds, F950s, F23s, all these other things onto these systems, you need a little bit more support. And this is what O'Connor does. So if you look here, this is getting into a much bigger thing. Come around here, check this out. So this is a huge head. Now you have a lot of control. You're able to slide this forward, because one of the things you're going to want to do is balance it. So if I open this up here, I don't know if it's balanced or not, so I'm going to grab onto it. I'm going to open it up here, and I want to make sure that this isn't going to want to fall forward or fall back. That's really important, because otherwise you get a big rig on here and you jerk it forward and things start coming off and people get upset and there's lots of insurance. So these are all things you got to worry about. These are big heads, and oftentimes you buy them separately. You worry about what you want to do with the legs, then you worry about what you want to do with the head. But when you need that big support, one of the things that's important is a lot of times people will try to get, they'll get a big tripod. They might spend $1,000 on it and they'll put a Red on it, and they start tilting forward. And sooner or later, that assembly just gets stripped down. It just can't handle that kind of weight, especially when it's pointed down. It's also why you want to keep it balanced, is because you don't want it constantly wanting to pull down on that tripod. These big tripods are just workhorses. This is a 2060. A lot of times when we're doing teleprompt with a Red camera, we're using a 2060 or a 2575. And so both of those are really these workhorses that we put together. Now there's also legs. So you have all of these just are designed to pop onto the legs. So you have a standard tripod here, and then you also have these little baby legs. So when you need to go a little bit lower, when you need to set it up, you don't want to you want to open these all the way out. You want to just set it right down. Now these are not cheap. Some of these can be as much as $10,000. I think this one's about $11,000. They get $15,000. They're very expensive, big production equipment. But if you're starting with a big camera, you got to make sure to respect it with a good head. So we're here at Mini Gyro. Now you're probably wondering how gyros and filmmaking get put together. Well, a lot of times, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the behind-the-scenes footage of stuff where everything's bouncing around. You get a little seasick, and you wish that they could just settle that down a little bit. Well, it can be hard. You're on the back of a truck. You're in a helicopter. You're doing, there's a lot of different reasons why it's really hard to keep everything stable. So what this does is it actually has a shock absorber down here. So you can see that I can push it up and down. Now when I'm holding onto it and the thing's bouncing up and down, what I'm actually going to get is it's going to keep up most of that shock away from the camera, so it's going to stay nice and steady. Now the gyros keep it all, create a lot more stability in what you had here. So what we have is I can just simply be holding, everything's bouncing around me, and everything's nice and calm. It's like a calm sea around with the actual camera. So this is not something you can buy yet. This is something they're showing. They're renting it about $400 a day plus the batteries, and so it's not something that you can necessarily purchase at the moment. But it is something that if you're going to stick it on the back of a truck and you're doing a real production, this is the kind of stuff you have to start thinking about. We were showing the heads. We were showing these huge O'Connor heads over there just a second ago, and they're what we call fluid heads. We're grabbing onto them, moving them back and forth. Of course, you can have ball heads, all kinds of things you can put on it. Well, this is a gear head, and this is gear necks, and what they have here is what a gear head does is it allows you. I can dial it in. So this is just vertical. This is just horizontal. So I can control them independently, and it's very, very smooth. You're probably wondering, why would you use this instead of a fluid head? The amount of control that you have, cinematographers really prefer this kind of head so that they can have the very fine control. When you want to have a nice, soft tilt or a nice, soft pan, and you want it to be just right, and you want it to slow down just right, it's very hard to control on a fluid head. It's much easier to control, well, much easier to control when you're good at it on a gear head. And so it does take a lot of practice, because it's kind of like rubbing your belly and chewing your fat in your head at the same time, because you have to keep if you want to go diagonal, you have to get them both going at the same time, go back. But the issue here is that I can also, when I make marks, a lot of times when you're doing film, the actor knows where he's going to get, you know where you got to get, and so you can decide, oh, I got to do 3 cranks, and I'm going to get to where I need to be, and he's going to be there, you're going to be there, instead of you just trying to eye it up. So a lot of times you can be a lot more precise with this. Now, these kind of heads often cost $20, $30, $40, $50, $60,000. I mean, these are really expensive heads. And when I'm on film sets, you know, when no one's looking, I go over there and I play with them, and I go, oh, this is really nice. And I think someday when I've made it, I'll have this big head, and you know, I don't want a Ferrari, I want a gearhead. And so I've just thought that would never be something that I would ever have. And so anyway, so when I saw this last year, I got really excited. And so this Gearnix is, it's about, I'm sorry, it's about $7,500. Now you can lease it for $250 a month if you can't, you know, bite down on $7,500 and then buy it at the end of the lease. And so it's a way that you can kind of softly get into one. But the thing is that this is really like finding out that you could buy a Ferrari for the price of a Honda. And then when I saw it, of course, I know it's it's a $7,500 piece. Does it really work? I mean, and I know for many of you, $7,500 for something that sits on the top of a tripod may seem like a lot of money, but for me, I was like, I don't know if it's really going to work. Well, I got to tell you, when you start grabbing onto this thing, it's just the mechanics are so smooth and easy, and there's a couple different speeds that you can use, and it's just a great little control. And again, if you're getting serious, if you want to move past the basic stuff, and also if you're going to get a big head, if you're putting a Red or an F950 or an F23 or something really big on top of your tripod, you're going to spend $5,000 to $10,000 on a head. I mean, we talked about that before. You're going to have to spend it because you're going to have to support that. If you're going to support it that way, you're going to start spending that kind of money, I'd very much suggest looking at Gearnix.